The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
It's episode number 57 of Dinner with the King. I'm Glenn Moore, and King and Jeff Jarrett are in the other room getting ready to record part 2 of our 2-part conversation with Jeff Jarrett here on Dinner with the King. I want to let you know before we get Jeff and King on the show, there's going to be a huge announcement on our social media accounts on Friday, June 1st, concerning Memphis Wrestling. You guys should tune in to all the social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, and we'll be posting the big news on Friday, June 1st, and you guys do not want to miss it. So we're going to get right back in the discussion. I see King and Jarrett walking in right now, and I think, guys, as they get settled in here, Jeff and King, we were talking about the Moondogs before we wrapped up for lunch last week.
Yeah, the Moondogs, everybody, you learned a lot working with those guys. And then one of the other big tag team situations that you and I had, Jeff, and I guess this was definitely after the Moondogs, but we remember when Bret Hart and Owen Hart came to Memphis, and you and we worked some tag team matches with those guys in Memphis.
Yeah, and that was, I was obviously
were you already gone to WWE by then?
Oh God, no. That was something that as I had done, obviously you were a seasoned vet, but I was still relatively young. I'd been in the business 5 years and done some Japan stuff and Puerto Rico and we had done Texas, but it was, this was 8 years into WrestleManias or 9 years. WWF was the show. By far at this time. And then, here comes the opportunity to work with WWF guys. And Marty and Sean had been to the territory, and Kurt Hennig had come down. So I had worked with guys that had been to the WWF, but for them to come down on a consistent basis, and we were going to get that opportunity. And, I'd only seen Owen in magazines and heard about him and watched him on some tapes from a guy in Louisville. But no, to get that opportunity, I could just remember I was super excited just to get the opportunity. And then, it just everything about them coming down, and then the storyline we had, and I just you talking and setting it up, and the first ever appearance by Mr. McMahon was in this sort of whole WWF USWA relationship. That was really, really cool. And the fans of Memphis, they, as we both know, very, very special. They loved it. They knew it was going to be special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to talk about the fact that was, I believe, in my heart, I believe that was the beginning of the heel Mr. McMahon. I don't think that he had thought about being a television character up till that point, until he came down to Memphis and did that little bit where the people didn't like him, and I think that was the start of what became the Attitude Era in WWE.
And here's where people you just had to have been there, and knowing sort of, I don't say we knew all sides, but Vince was the face of the WWF. He was in the middle of the ring for Mania 1, 2, and 3. I mean, he was the promoter, so yes, Hulk was the babyface, but Vince was the face. And he was the dominant promoter. They had come in and bought up time all over the town, and we were the little engine that could. And so there was a lot of reality-based, promos. Hate to even call them promos, but I can remember that little area at Memphis TV where the monitor was, Jerry, the first one that I saw, and everybody looking around, when his promo was over, everybody just sort of went, "Oh my God, how good was that?" Yes, I agree with you 1,000% that however, that got to market, the evil Mr. McMahon, it is on record. That is the first time he ever played that extension of his personality, because it wasn't a character. That was him. He was evil Mr. McMahon. It was great.
All right, let me ask you this. Now, I got my phone here in front of me, and I'm watching something on YouTube that was one of my DVDs called Mega Matches, and it's a match of you and I against each other in 1993. Obviously at the Coliseum, and it looks like you already have on your what you were wearing in the WWE. And 93 is when I think I said, when did you start at WWE?
93.
Okay.
Yeah, October 93.
Okay. Now, isn't that where like Giant Gonzalez and all of these guys came down to the ring?
Yes.
in a Brett. So then some of that was after you were in the WWE, right?
Are you talking about this specific match or the story?
Well, no, this particular match was just you and I, but it seemed like that around that same time is when we were getting guys to come down from WWE like Brett and like Owen and then Giant Gonzalez and.
Well, but that was before I actually went up there for the first in 91, 92, 93 is when we had the talent exchange. Jerry, you had essentially the decision that you made, or however the decision was made, you were leaving the territory for all intents and purposes on a full-time basis. You were gone. Mm-hmm. You certainly weren't going to make Evansville, Indiana again, but no, you were gone. And if I remember correctly, the I'll call it the trade-off is that because I remember we had the narcissist, as in Lex Luger, we had Savage, we had Gonzalez, we had a lot of talent. We had that talent exchange, and guys came down on a regular basis in exchange for you. That's when, you got into a full-time situation doing Raw every Monday. I mean, you worked, I don't say 100% because you still had ownership down here, but, you were, as a talent, you were full-time WWF. And in exchange, we had all those guys. And, Bruno had already gone, and he was working with Gonzalez. I mean, I remember Gonzalez in that little town, that little up there in Missouri or in Arkansas. Anyway, we brought him up there, and he couldn't even fit in a door, a little bitty school. But anyway, the talent exchange was in full effect at that time in 92. And that's where we built to a really good story because Vince, they booked a show in Memphis, and I hopped the rail. But that was before Double J was ever around.
Oh, wow. Now here's something that I wanted to talk a little bit about because my memories kind of come back to me from things that happened in the from things that happened back in the day, and get reminded to me on stuff that I see on Twitter. And just yesterday, I saw something on Twitter that said it was a picture of you and me with a mask on and Michael J. Fox. And somebody said, wow, was this from USWA? But in reality, that was from a movie that you and I did with Michael J. Fox called Life with Mikey. Do you remember doing that?
Very well. And if I remember the story correctly, Bill Apter was sort of the conduit that the production company said, hey, we need this. And Bill, whether rightly or wrongly so, or however, we always had a good relationship, knew that WWF couldn't turn on a dime or wouldn't turn on a dime. And you had the relationship. And we went up to Toronto and filmed it. And what's weird
it was really cool. It really is a good movie. So if you're out there and you got a chance to find it anywhere, it's called Life with Mikey. It's Michael J. Fox, and it's the story of Michael J. Fox plays a kid who he's grown up now, but he used to be a child actor, and he was in maybe a story in an old TV show like Leave It to Beaver or something like that. But he played a child. He was a child actor as a kid, and then he's grown up and he's still remembered for that role. But what he's doing now, along with his brother, they have a child actors talent agency, and a talent agency for all these kids, and which he's not really fond of doing. But anyway, he runs into some young girl who actually picks his pocket. She's like a little street waif who actually picks his pocket and he befriends her and then gets her to get a big part in a commercial and the part of a celebration thing. He brings her and all the other kids to a wrestling match, and you and I are wrestling. He tells them beforehand. He said, "Look, I'm going to take you out for a celebration. We're going to have dinner, and then we're going to go somewhere. But you have to be on your best behavior." And they all go, "Oh!" And then the next thing you know, they're at a wrestling match, and you and I are the two wrestlers in there. And we wound up. And if you remember, Michael J. Fox comes down to the ring, and I've wound up picking him up over my head and give him a big airplane spin, and then throw him over to you. You catch him, you fall backwards with him, and then you threw him off over onto the ring floor. And we did that scene with a stuntman the first day, and then they called us back the next day, and Michael J. Fox wanted to actually do it not with the stuntman. He wanted to actually do that scene himself. Remember that?
See, Jerry, you can remember things if you want to, because that is exactly how it went down. Yeah, and I can remember the splash pad, but Michael trusted you and I trusted the situation. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that's the unique story I have about that. That's one picture that I've actually had in my house going back to way back. I have very little wrestling memorabilia since last couple of years.
What year was that from? Do you remember what year that movie was?
I want to say 92.
93.
Was it 93?
Yeah, it was released on June 4th, 93, but I think it was filmed late 92.
Yeah, because I don't think either one of us was in WWE yet at that time.
No. That's why I think it was filmed 92-ish.
And it was one of those things that at that time it was really unusual for somebody other than a WWE wrestler to get a movie part. I mean, all the movie parts or anything like that were going to WWE wrestlers. So
you still get those hefty checks, Jerry? Big checks.
Big. I really do. I got one just a couple of weeks ago for. I think what Jeff is talking about. We really do still get royalty checks from the movie Man. I still get them from Man on the Moon too, about the same way. But this is from Life with Mikey, and I got one just the other day for about $3.39. You get it like that? Yeah. I open them up and I think this has got to cost them more in postage and envelopes and putting this thing together than it's worth to send out,
Hell, just accounting alone. And I remember Karen opening one of them for the first time, 7, 8, 9, whatever, years ago. And I just would chuckle. But yes, Life with Mikey. And that was fun, though. He got into it. He really got into it. The thing that you left out, and I know you remember that was a boxing ring and how hard it was?
Yes, absolutely was.
Yes. And you love doing the takes. Hey, let me slam him because you had to set me up for the. Yeah, so I took 100 slams that day. But no, that's all right.
And the only other thing I remember about Michael J. Fox was the fact he was a chain smoker. Remember that?
Yes. Yeah. And both of us to this day hate smoke. But yes, I remember that.
A little tiny guy, but he was as nice as he could be. Beautiful wife. And everybody was there. Everybody was there on the set, and
had a lot of fun.
And everybody thought that all the movies were made in Hollywood. That was the first time I realized that about 80% of movies are made in Canada because it's a lot cheaper up there for to make movies.
Yeah, and I can remember. There's another thing too. Is I remember that making all that. And they put us up at the Four Seasons, and I'm like 22, 23 years old in this 3-suite Four Seasons hotel that I did put my head on maybe 8 hours because we worked the whole time. So, yeah. Okay. There's some more useless trivia, Glenn, that we remembered.
Right.
Well,
is there any useful trivia that we could remember?
Well, no. I have a question. While you're talking about the Moondogs, I was had some notes here, and while I was researching Moondog's spot, it says that he passed away because of a heart attack in the ring during Jerry Lawler's birthday bash show on November 29th, 2003 in Memphis, Tennessee.
Exactly right.
Wow.
I'll never forget. I mean, I was in the back. Were you at that show, Jeff?
No. I can remember Tony Falk is the one, good old Tony. I think Tony's the one who came to the TNA show the following week and told me pretty much about it. I don't know if he was there or not. I was there and in the back, and it was a big show. It was like you said, a birthday celebration or whatever. And I'll never forget. I was in like the later match, and there was a battle royal going on, and had the Rock and Roll Express, the Moondogs, several other guys in it. And all of a sudden, I'm in my little back dressing area there, and all of a sudden, Robert Gibson comes kind of around the corner in the door, and I look up and I said, "Aren't you supposed to be in this battle royal?" And he said, "Yeah, but there's something wrong with Larry." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I don't know. He's just laying in the corner. He's leaning up in the corner, and we keep kicking him and punching him and everything. He won't move." And I said, "What?" So anyway, sure enough, we go out, and he was dead. I mean, Larry had passed away in the ring. They got him on call the ambulance and got him out of the ring on a stretcher. And I remember pulled him to the back, and I remember standing back there holding his hand and talking to him, while they were trying to do CPR on him on the stretcher. But it was no doubt. I mean, he was already gone. He had already turned completely. He just, if you're around somebody, when they pass away, when the blood goes with the gravity down out of their body, they just turn a gray color. And Larry was he was just completely gray, and he was gone right then. Wow. And you know what I thought that you were about to say, Glenn, and Jerry, I don't know if you remember this, but during those Moondogitis days, we had a battle royal, and earlier in the night there was a tag match or whatever, and Larry got his licks in. But then there was a battle royal, and I will not. Hopefully, somebody out there in Twitter world will recall this or know the names. Do you remember the two guys that jumped in the ring and literally? And then when we had it on film, and I think it was 40-something punches in about 15 seconds. Do you remember when the guys jumped Larry and just bloodied both eyes, blacked both eyes? Do you remember that battle royal, Jerry? That you recall any of that? The Eric Embry was in the territory. Anyway. Two guys that had a bad case of moondogitis that Larry had definitely laid a few licks in. They came down, and then they ran to the back in Memphis, got in their car, and we never saw them again.
Oh, yes, I do. Yeah, that was a
violent ass whooping that night. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I thought you were about to say, Glenn.
And Larry Latham the Moondog, he just took it in stride. It was like, was that a match or what happened just then?
Later that night, he said, they got me pretty good. I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, Larry, got you pretty good. You're about half dead.
Yeah, both eyes were busted open and swollen shut, and he didn't think anything about it.
Here's what, and this is something that probably the legend of the story grew a little bit, but he did say this for sure as he was leaving that night. He let a couple of us know, hey, don't worry, I'm not driving. Oh, really, Jerry? I mean, oh, really, Larry? We thought you may just hop on your motorcycle and leave. He let us know.
I'm okay. My eyes are swollen shut, but I'm not driving, so it's okay.
Exactly. Oh, my gosh. Yep, that was a good one. That is useful trivia there, Glenn.
Actually, Jeff, another guy that you got to do a lot of teaming with, that also was famous for teaming with your dad, and this is always something cool when you go, when you get to do some things with guys that were, around way before your time, but then you still get a chance to do some stuff with him. Was Tojo Yamamoto, right? Tojo was instrumental in your first. That was the first angle of the first thing when you got started in the business, right?
Well, it wasn't the first angle. You were the first angle. Dundee, Landell beat me up. My dad came out. Right. He got beat up. That was really the first angle. But and then Tony Falk, the loser, he was wanting to break his losing streak. That was the next thing. But really, the first angle that I was, that was, I guess you could say, centered around me as the babyface was Tojo, and the history with my dad and Tojo and everything that went with it. And when I was setting up rings, Tojo used to joke with me, but then he'd talk with me and sell, kid. He would help me facials, and it was a little bit of a running joke to some guys, but Tojo was very, very serious about how a babyface should sell. and he taught me a lot. I mean, he meant well and really got into it. Then when we did those angles, but yeah, he the kendo stick, and he walloped me good. My dad enjoyed that, I'm sure. But I have always said that, I got blessed for 16. A guy counted up. I think either 16 or 17 weeks, 6 or 7 nights a week, or twice on Saturdays. I got to wrestle, me and a partner, against Akio Sato and Tarzan Goto, with Tojo as their manager. Mm-hmm. And that was really my really, if you want to call it military style, that was my basic training, that I got to work with them every night, tag match, and after every match. And I can remember getting aggravated because it would be literally after every match, Sato would pull me aside and critique me and tell me this and tell me that. But yeah, and Tojo would come in and talk about selling. So that was my real crash course, or not crash course, it was my course. But yeah, Tojo and
Sato and Goto. And I can remember the tough thing about working with those guys were Sato was sort of okay, but Goto was spoke very little English.
None.
And none, right. And Sato was limited. And so that to be able to work a match with those guys and not be able to talk with one of them, not be able to talk or communicate at all, that was it probably worked out in your favor later on.
Oh,
but
gosh,
that was tough then, that was tough.
It was really hard. And also the art of the tag match. I can just remember going, oh, that's how that's supposed to work. Right. But it was, but it really did. I really learned. I look back on that. That's 4 or 5 months of night in, night out. The guys today, and Shaq in the last 50, they don't get that opportunity because it wasn't in a wrestling school. It was in front of a different crowd, 6 nights a week. Which that's another thing that is so. People can't. It's really hard to relate, but that a Memphis crowd is different than a Louisville crowd, different than a Nashville crowd, and you had to sort of work accordingly, or you had a stinking match, pretty much. But no, Akio Sato, but old Tojo. I was just talking to a buddy of mine at the gym a couple of months ago, and he was talking about, and he had no idea how Tojo's final days ended up being. Just tragic, but old Tojo. Great memories of him and his cooking too, as well.
Well, speaking of memories, who were some of your back in the Memphis days? And we're going to get in a few minutes, or maybe next week, before we get into the WWE days. But who were some of your favorite guys? I know you and Billy Travis were great friends, and you and Robert Fuller were great friends. But who were some of your favorite guys back in the Memphis days?
Well, what's and in the territory days, obviously you were part owner and a mainstay, and even Dundee was a mainstay, but he was in and out. But one guy that was there pretty much my entire career was Frank Morrell, and he refereed, and he was an old timer, and I wish I could still stay in touch with Frank, but because here was an old grizzly, now he'd get mad because him old, but a grizzled vet who knew the ins and outs. And he didn't sugarcoat anything, as far as in-ring work. He was a great nightly critique, and just night in, night out. So, I remember those times.
Do you not stay in touch? He still get a Christmas card from Frank and Ina.
Do you really?
Yes.
I'll be damned. Good old Ina. I can remember on the foot race, him against Randy Hales, and I had to drive Frank home and get him inside.
He broke his wrist.
Broke his arm, broke his wrist, and I can remember saying, Ina, and she's like, "What the hell happened to you? You're supposed to leave the house, and you were refereeing tonight."
What we're talking about was we had Frank as the referee, and Randy Hales was just, I don't know what Randy was doing. He was doing commentating or whatever. But somehow you and I ribbed them into doing a race, a foot race in the back of the Louisville Gardens. And these guys started, and the only way I can think of to describe the way it ended was they were sort of almost in a tie, and Frank was really trying to give it that extra push at the end, and he pulled a Titus O'Neil. He just like Titus O'Neil at the Greatest Royal Rumble. All of a sudden, Frank did a face bump down and slid right into, and instead of sliding underneath the ring like Titus did, Frank slid face first and hand first into a concrete wall or brick wall there at the end of the
Louisville Gardens, back of Louisville Gardens,
and broke his arm or his wrist or whatever. And it was crazy. Poor guy.
Oh, I mean, and I vividly remember because he went, oh my God, boom, head first into that wall. And I thought, it scared the crap out of me.
We laughed at first because it was so funny looking. It looked like the Titus O'Neil bump. But then when he got up, all of a sudden.
He rolled over on his back. And I'm like, and I ran right up on him. And I looked down and he's got this big gushing, split head. His head was split wide open. And I said, oh my God, Frank, is your head okay? And he said, my head, my effing arm. And he lifted it up. And it was mangled, and I walked right away from him and sat down because I about passed out. That's the truth.
God, his arm, it was bent up. It was like it didn't break the skin, but it was like such a fracture that it just it looked like Joe Theismann's leg almost there, or Sid Vicious's leg. It was awful.
Yeah, brutal. But Frank is a guy that you travel a lot with. You mentioned Robert Fuller, another guy that I was around quite a bit was Dutch. And Dutch was another guy who always would pull me aside and try to help me. And he really, we had a relationship from the very, and I met him before I got in the business, but right when I got in the business, obviously he was a part of that very first angle. And then, he was in and out over the years, but me and Dutch had a friendship back then. And still to this day, obviously, I just talked to Dutch a couple of days ago. But he was another one. Pat Tanaka in my early years there. But gosh, you could go through a list. But Frank was a guy who, because he refereed and he was at every show, I rode more miles with that man than anybody else.
Did you ever go? And Frank somehow got doing a little golfing with Billy Travis. And
God.
That funny story of Frank standing off to the side, and I guess Billy was teeing off and somehow hit the ball straight sideways.
Yep.
I guess he just hit the ball with the very end of his club, and the ball went straight sideways and hit Frank right in the side and his ribs or whatever.
Yep. Oh, that's I actually played some golf back in those days. And the Corey Macklin story is the funniest, but. My God.
Corey Macklin was trying to impress you guys, and he wanted to go play golf with you so bad, and Jerry Jarrett and everything, and he told everybody that he was a good golfer, and I guess you guys invited him finally to go play golf. And what did he do to go tee off?
You have to have been there, because I don't think he ever really thought we were going to ask him. Well, he obviously did. And then we said next Saturday, bring your clubs, be there, we're going. You're riding with whatever. And so we got out there, and and none of us could play worth a crap anyway. But Corey staked the cake. He didn't have clubs. He's going to rent them. And you may think I'm kidding, but it's the truth.
Yep.
He pulls out, and I'm not exaggerating or embellishing. This is not a wrestling story or a fish story that grows as the years. He pulled out a putter to tee off. True story. He did not even know what a club.
One club from the other. He tees the ball up and gets to tee off with the putter.
And Frank, I'll never forget it. The eye contact between my father and Frank Morrell is priceless, because they knew it. I thought this has got to be a joke, but it was like, this is going to be a long 18 holes.
Oh, but yeah. He didn't try to play. He didn't try to play after that, did he?
No, and Frank was patient with him. Actually, Frank said, "No," because Frank actually really we all like Corey, but Frank helped him out, and he'd hit a ball and it'd be terrible, and he'd whiff a few times like all of us did, but we never played his ball. He drove around with us, and he would hit from time to time, but it was funny.
Yeah, those are some good old days.
Nobody would believe we did Memphis TV from 10 to 11:30, went and played 18 holes, and went over to Jonesboro and wrestled that night. That was our Saturday.
Well, you guys did. I didn't play golf at that time. I thought I for some reason I'd love to go play, and Jerry Calhoun and I play a lot now. But at that time, I thought golf was the old man's game. Yeah. I would just not do it.
That's right. That's right. You didn't play at all.
No.
Yeah.
I would not.
Right.
I said that's for old guys. Well, let's talk now. Let's talk a little bit about you started in the WWE in 1993, and the Double J gimmick, if you want to call it that. Whose idea was that? Was that you, Vince? What was the deal on that?
I can remember just sort of collaborating. That country music singer was I don't say a given, but that was right out of the gate with Vince. And then the spelling of the name, and he communicated through Bruce Pritchard, and we did the vignettes, and it just sort of one concept of a country music singer that's going to use the WWF to break was the definition of it. And wrestling came second nature to me, and the background, and that. Wrestling is almost like a hobby, but I remember how they were saying it. But once we sort of started rolling with it, everything just sort of clicked and fell into place. And it was so refreshing to me. I'd been the babyface for 7 years, and I got to go, I was the heel for the very first time on a national stage, and we did the vignettes, and obviously, a Memphis TV to Monday Night Raw. Just the production values were extremely upgraded and different, and a whole new world. But it was. I remember also JR and I doing the commentary, and just the fact that you and I were so close from the Memphis area and everything, and then the country music thing, and JR and I both, it just clicked. We just really had a great time doing. You were one of my very first King's Court. Yep. There and I just really remember having a great time calling Double J matches. I mean, just and because both JR and I were country music fans, and we knew a lot about it, and we knew other country music terms and names to throw in the commentary and everything. It was really a lot of fun to do. I can remember the as in '95, and this is Vince was your partner on Raw. At this time, he was Monday Night Raw. It was you and him. And so Royal Rumble '95, the roadie just got put with me, and I'd won the Intercontinental title in Raw, and we went. In Tampa on Royal Rumble, and then the next night in Brayton, in Florida, we did Monday Night Raw, and I was going to bring the belt out, and it was the lighted jacket, and that lighted jacket was up and down, up and down, up and down, and I did a promo in the ring, and my shoulders got burnt from the batteries, and you carried the interview. But anyway, that interview, if you go back and watch that now, you can see me semi-squirming, and we got to the back. And whether you meant it or not, you said, "Oh man, that was great." And I said, "Shit, my freaking shoulders are killing me." And you go, "What?" Yeah, but yeah. And I can remember when I would back in those days, you tape it, and I would come home, and I will say that was when just the style of announcing. I was obviously from Lance and Dave here, and their style was just completely different than Vince and your style. On Raw, and how and JR says the wrestlers write they're the instruments, and you guys write the lyrics, and how appropriate that is. You guys define the character truly. And not just me, so many. But Vince is great at it. You're great at it. JR is great at it. But you literally give the voice to the talent in the ring that sometimes, and like a lot of people, a lot of times when talent opens their mouth, they take 4 or 5 steps backwards. Just right. Truly, just let the announcers create that aura and that image and draw that picture in the viewer's mind. That art is so, I think, sometimes so missing nowadays because so much content is churned out, or it's just different that the description of the character and that it really, the vignettes were one thing. And when I've been asked about that, the vignettes, 13 consecutive weeks of vignettes before I ever appeared, and then stepped out on Monday Night Raw, and a couple of months of wins. And then, I wasn't even going to call them programs, but sort of mini programs, like Doink was the one. And there was a picture floating around on Twitter where I dressed up, and you were interviewing me you were the one interviewing me, and as Doink, I was, pantomiming, but you did the whole talking. I couldn't talk as Doink. You carried everything, and then I was revealed as the Doink. But that build of Double J, you just can't go back and replicate that era. But it was really a year before I was put into a position to say, okay, let's go draw money with this guy. But a year was under my belt of defining the character. So when it was time to pull the trigger, and those opportunities just don't happen anymore, really.
No, that's one thing that I noticed is missing. Like you said, 13 weeks of vignettes before you ever actually appeared live on the TV. We used to that, and that's one thing that I think that they used to sort of copy off of the Memphis TV back in the day. We did more. We found out that there was a way to do more with a music video or a vignette. Then that would mean more. You could do a 2-minute music video or vignette with somebody, and and all these highlights and stuff in there, or some kind of scene or whatever with a person, and it would mean more than if they went out and just beat up a job guy 5 times. And that's what they did with you back then. Those vignettes that they did were so informative and so meaningful that, man, by the time the people were just salivating they couldn't wait to actually get to see you in person. And it seems like they don't do that kind of thing anymore. I don't know why.
All right. Hey, Glenn, Jerry, my battery's about to die. I'm going to pick right up on that, my response. So I've got to unplug. Unfortunately, I got to because it's the newer iPhone.
We're gonna
let's wrap it up after that thing.
About an hour
Go
and a
ahead
half.
and do that, and then we've gone so long on this thing anyway. But we'll kind of finish it up after that, and then we'll say, hey, we got a lot more to talk about, and we'll do this again sometime.
All right, then I'll interview. I'll pick. I got enough battery there. Let me. I got 8% left, so I'll just pick it up from there.
Okay.
All right, 3, 2. Yeah, I mean the vignettes, and just so many things nowadays. And I don't know if it's society or however things are, but just letting things breathe a little bit goes so far from like you said, back in Memphis. But the WWF in those days, defining characters, they did a lot of things right. Still do a lot of things right. But God Almighty, I can just remember in the 90s, WWF introducing a character versus WCW introducing a character. It was
my gosh.
It was just night and day in so many ways. And that was the first time I walked out live in Poughkeepsie, New York. It was a thundering boo, and that was all off 13 weeks of vignettes.
Exactly
completely.
right.
Exactly right. Yeah, really, really character definition and a whole. It was great.
Well, you know what? We could spend 2 or 3 weeks talking about your WWE career, and we will do that if you'll come back with us another time. It's so much fun and so easy to do a podcast with you, Jeff, because we're just talking. I mean, it's not. So many things come to mind, and that you can expound on, and then that while we're talking, it'll bring other things to mind, and we don't have to go in any certain direction. It's just fun to reminisce.
From Gypsy Joe to cutting grass to Doink to Larry Latham's heart attack, and then everything in between. No, I always enjoy it. Yeah, I'd love to come back anytime, and love chatting. WWF, WWE, whatever.
We both are going to have to do some research. We're going to have to talk to your dad and find out what that burning question is about the fact that what you did to make him send you down to Memphis to apologize and cut my grass and all that sort of stuff. That's the next time we're together. We'll do that. Okay.
And Glenn, we're going to get right down to the hardcore of this, because the truth is, Jerry made my father do this. That's the truth.
No.
No.
Cut
I'm
my
kidding.
grass.
Maybe the cut the grass part.
Yeah. Oh no, always have a good time with you guys. Really do. And I appreciate you having me on.
Jeff, thank you so much, and we'll do it again. Okay.
Yeah, man.
All right, King. That's our 2-part episode with Jeff Jarrett. A ton. I feel like we got through a ton of information, but I feel like it's just scratching the surface when it comes to the history between you and Jeff.
Yeah, well, that's because there was so much history there for years and years. We did all the stuff down in the Memphis territory, and then for years and years up in WWE. So just to talk about it for basically, I mean, a few minutes. Yeah, there's no way you can do it justice.
Now next week, our little our guest carousel spins again because we're going to have Glenn Jacobs, aka Kane, on the show next week, and you two have a lot of history as well.
Yes, we do. I'm really looking forward to that, and then we got so many things to talk about, history-wise in the WWE, history-wise before the WWE, and then we're going to talk about what he made. He's already made history by winning the Republican primary there in the Knox County mayor's race. So we got a lot of stuff to talk with Glenn about.
And then after that, the week after is going to be our Jackie Fargo tribute show.
Oh man, that's going to be awesome too.
And I have a ton of audio from Jackie Fargo interviews between you and him, but also just Jackie Fargo audio in general. So I know that's a very special episode for you. So we're going to devote however long it takes for our Jackie Fargo tribute show, King.
And on that, you have a lot of audio that is, from Jackie Fargo interviews on Memphis TV and in the past and all that stuff. But I have about 3 or 4 more Jackie Fargo interviews on my phone that I did just with me, and they've never been seen or heard by anybody ever. So we're going to play a couple of those too. That will be some never before heard interviews with Jackie Fargo. One of them is about Brian Christopher. That is a classic. I can't wait for you to hear that.
So that's going to be in a couple of weeks, but look forward to have Glenn Jacobs on. But thanks to Jeff Jarrett for coming on the show as well. Yep. And King, any final words?
Final word is goodbye, everybody, as Lance used to say.
We'll talk to everybody next week here on Dinner with the King.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production.